Welcome to the Yoga Nation Spirit of Gratitude podcast on the Ontegration platform. Hello, friends. My name is Yogesh Patel, and the purpose of this podcast focuses on bullying, self-awareness, and our inner spirit, inviting high-profile guests to share their experiences on these various topics. For those that have had the pleasure of watching in awe of the Blue Angels Air Show at Fleet Week, or perhaps in a different city, wondering about the pilots that are manning the aircraft, I am so thrilled, so honored, and super excited to have former captain of the USS Constellation and flight leader of the Navy Blue Angels from 1986 to 1988, Boss Gil Rud. And for those aviation enthusiasts like myself, he led the transition of the aircraft from the A-4 Skyhawk to the FA-18 Hornet. He is one incredible storyteller, having written a book titled From Prairie to the Pacific, A Blue Angel's Journey. As he describes himself, I am just proud to have progressed from a one-room country school to the captain of an aircraft carrier. Well, from that statement, sir, humility must run deep into your veins with everything that you've accomplished serving your country. Captain and Boss Rud, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Glad to be here, Yogi.
Absolutely. And just a recap for the audience. The mission of the Blue Angels is to showcase the pride and professionalism of the United States Navy and Marine Corps by inspiring a culture of excellence and service to country through flight demonstrations and community outreach.
Yes, it is. We, over the years, have done a pretty good job of that. 78 years we've been together now. And so it seems like an awful long time, but there's been a lot of good done during that time, especially when it comes to recruiting.
Sir, in our planning call, you had described your primary focus on the podcast would be around the inner spirit, though there is a reference of bullying in the book. And in the earlier chapters, talking about your upbringing, you write, as a 6-year-old, I was exposed to some rough games, teasing, and I suppose what is now called bullying. Of course, that bullying was most accomplished by the girls who were bigger than I was. Curious, sir, was the word bullying not commonplace during that time?
Never really heard the term bullying. You know, you were just growing up in those times, and part of your growing up was to have some older kids give you a little guidance, which at times could be a bit severe. And so that little school we had, you know, there was, when I was 6 years old as a first grader, well, the games we played and all were done with people all the way through the age of 14 who were 8th graders. And so there were some tough times when you were little, you know, going through there. But as far as the girls go, you know, there were only 4 of us in my class and 3 girls and me. So I basically finished last at everything for 8 years. And they beat me up for the first 3. But after that, I managed to take care of myself.
So how did you overcome those challenges growing up, being beat up? And
well, it just, you know, it wasn't anything severe or anything like that. It was, you overcame it simply by your inner spirit. You know, you said, hey, I'm okay. You know, I can handle this. And look at the other kids. They all went through this. They did fine. And I think I mentioned to you earlier, as far as bullying goes, my children, you know, we moved constantly when I was in the Navy. 3 children at the time, and my oldest was in 3 high schools in 4 years. Now imagine that as far as fitting in at all those places. Now, social media wasn't out there as like it is now, but still, she overcame that with studying hard, doing as well as she could, and then she was a good athlete.
Interesting. Well, speaking of Vietnam and again transitioning to the Blue Angels, and you know, from the aerial maneuvers that the Blue Angels perform at these air shows, I mean, coming 18 inches apart from wingtip to wingtip, that certainly poses risk, you know, of your lives if you just make one small mistake. How do you mentally block out these distractions? You know, perhaps may have been someone said something to you or a stress in the home front. You used the word and term compartmentalization. Could you elaborate on that, please?
Okay. Compartmentalization is basically blocking out everything that's going on around you except what you are doing at the time, and that is flying. And so it can be really hard on personal relationships. Because my first wife, my late wife, Barbara, she would say to the kids and that, okay, we're within 2 hours of an air show. Don't even talk to him. Don't even look at him. He's not going to pay any attention to you. He's going to be thinking about nothing but that air show. And it's especially important once you start the air show. I mean, we did some air shows with nearly 1 million people in attendance. You pay no attention to it. You just get in that airplane and you fly the best you can.
Well, I guess from my perspective, it's more of a general question because, again, when I had a chance to visit the museum in January, I mean, again, it moved me just because of I certainly had a greater appreciation of the United States, the military, the folks that are currently serving our country or have served our country. So for me, there was pride and just USA, USA, and I was just curious to find out if you happen to see that as an everyday theme with you and the other docents at on the Midway.
Yes, and that's really important. And then, of course, you can look right across the bay and see the modern nuclear-powered carriers that are over there, and you have a chance to talk about the crew that are on those carriers now. And as you probably heard from, my oldest daughter just retired from the Navy after 28 years, and
Okay, congratulations to Valerie.
yes, and she was flying off carriers. She has over 500 carrier landings, and she always claims that she's a better pilot than I am. We have some good discussions over that, but so that's important too. To make sure that not only 15% of the crew on those nuclear carriers are women, okay, and the little girls will sit in the audience and go, "What? They're not aware of this, that you can do too." So yeah, it's a great platform to be able to give people a perspective of what it's like to serve the country, and also the fact that less than 1% of the population of the United States actually serve in the military, and so that it's all volunteer. So it's a terrific force, but we need more people thinking about doing it.
Well, it kind of goes back to, again, the elements of this podcast. From what I just took away, it's that theme of gratitude. Again, you're grateful for everyone that has served and protect, the U.S. citizens, both, at home and abroad. So again, just wanted to get your thoughts on that aspect of gratitude.
Oh, the gratitude is I'm grateful to all the people in my life who allowed me, my parents and my teachers, my mentors all the way through, and then my instructors in the Navy, and my family for putting up with all the moves. And you can call them adventures, but sometimes they weren't so fun. And especially nowadays, I don't know if you're going to ask me later about the Blue Angel Foundation, but man, we really support.
Let's get into that. Absolutely. Would love for you to share more details about the foundation, how you're involved, and
So we have a foundation that is set up for wounded veterans. Okay, and so we raise money because of our visibility, the Blue Angels. We can sponsor golf tournaments and dinners and things like that raise quite a bit of money. And so what we do with that money is we support traumatic brain injury cure, or at least treatment, in 4 big hospitals across the country. And we've raised, I think, close to $10 million over the last 10 years or so to help these kids because at one time, 22 a day were committing suicide. That is unacceptable. And now it's down to 17, which is still unacceptable, but it's a heck of a lot better. And so also we support Freedom Station, which is a transitional area for wounded veterans that come out of Balboa Hospital and then go into this like a small 1950s motel that's been redone. So each of these guys have their own room there where they can have their service dogs and all that. And then they can transition to civilian life and get a good job and get started. We got to take care of them. They cannot be homeless, that's for sure.
well, certainly, I mean, after the podcast, I will provide links and information for more people to come to an understanding of what the Blue Foundation is about. So they could perhaps volunteer, donate. Again, I think it's certainly a worthy cause. This has been incredible, Captain Rud, and thank you for giving me the chance to share this platform with you. Again, this podcast that I'm doing is not about me. It's certainly about, I'm simply just the messenger. You are the message. And kind of final thoughts is, again, thank you also for sharing the new documentary that's out on Amazon Prime called the Blue Angels. Captain Rud, Boss Rud, makes a cameo appearance. So citizens of Yog Nation, you definitely want to check that out. It's produced, well, one of the producers, excuse me, is Glenn Powell from Top Gun Maverick. You have an interesting story to share about the premiere. Would love for the audience to hear you from what happened that day.
Well, on the premiere, we actually brought 100 wounded veterans and some active duty to a theater, an IMAX theater. And Pat Moneymaker, who was a flight leader of the Blues after me and who's my neighbor, just lives here in Poway, he and I went over and we actually introduced the movie. So I had to see it first, and then I could introduce the movie to these wonderful veterans. And that gave us an opportunity to answer questions both before and after. And I was rather shocked to see my old face show up for 18 seconds or whatever it was. I said, whoop, I didn't realize I was in this. Yeah. But Brian Kesselring, who was a flight leader during this entire documentary, he and I are both from North Dakota, which is, I mean, you have two transitions in 34 years from one airplane to another, and they were both led by kids from North Dakota.
Thank you kindly for your time. Hope to see you again, as I would love to be able to invite you back, or even perhaps, how about this? How about we get Valerie and yourself, both as decorated naval aviators, to have a father-daughter conversation?
That might be fun.
Okay. Well, sir, thank you.
We'll see if she still respects her dad or not. You know what I mean? She does claim to be the best pilot in the family because she did win, so.
There's that humility that I had initially described early on. Thank you again, sir.
Hey, thanks for what you do, Yogi. This is a great podcast.
Thank you. I sincerely, oh man, that made my day. Thank you.